Hello guys, welcome to week 6. This lesson is for Monday through Wednesday. First off, thank you for those of you who submitted your chapter 5 packet, chapter 5 tests. I'll be grading that very soon. This lesson is going to be covering 6.1 transformations of trig functions. Okay, so I wrote some of these words ahead of time because I write kind of slow, so just don't want to take up too much of the recording time. So these three words are range, amplitude, and period. Okay, you guys should be familiar with range because range is the interval of y values for the function. So whatever graph that you're looking at, whenever I ask for range, you would look for the smallest y and the biggest y, that would be an interval. Okay, remember intervals? In this case, in this range, your intervals would be like either parentheses or brackets, comma bracket, or like parentheses, comma parentheses, or either or, okay? For amplitude, this is the amount by which the graph of the function travels above and below its midline. Okay, so I'll explain what that means in a little bit. And the last word is period. Period is the interval of x values on which the cycle of the graph that repeated in both directions. So this is a different type of interval, and I will explain that in a little bit. What you guys are going to be using most of the time for these few lessons is Desmos. Okay, so Desmos.com, you can use your phone or you can use the Chromebook. They have already installed Desmos as an app on it. So please make sure you use this because it will be very helpful for your lesson. Okay, first off, I'm gonna go over two original graph. Okay, which is the sine graph and the cosine graph. We have talked about this before. Let's say if I have from 0 to 2 pi, and the middle would be pi, right? Oh, sorry. And the y values, lowest is -1, highest is 1. So your sine x graph, if I put sine 0, it's going to start at 0. Okay, and then if I put the middle of 0 to pi, is pi over 2, right? And that's going to go up to 1. Okay, sine pi is 0. Sine 3 pi over 2 is -1. And then sine 2 pi, it's going to go back to 0. Okay, so if I have to graph this, I'm going to connect all the points and make a curve from there. Okay, so that's the sine x graph. Let's look at the cosine graph. So we're going to draw the same x's and y values. And then for cosine x graph, cosine 0, it's going to start with 1. Okay, and then we're going to come down. The middle would be at 0. When it's pi, cosine pi is going to be at -1, and then go back up and go back up. So it's kind of like forming a V shape. It's more like a curved V. Oops, I gotta connect. Okay, so it's kind of like a V shape. So this is the original graph. And for this original graph, if I have to talk about the range, okay, and then amplitude, and period is green. Then what would it be for each of these graphs? Okay, let's look at range. What's the lowest and highest y values that we have here? It's from -1 to 1, right? And we are touching those points, so it would be brackets. Okay, same thing for cosine. The lowest and highest would be at -1 to 1. And then amplitude. So amplitude says the amount by which the graph of the function travels above and beyond the middle line. So if you look at this graph, the middle line would be right here. Okay, so how far did we travel up from there? That's just 1. Same thing, travel down, that's just 1. Okay, so it would be 1. And then for the C graph, the middle, again, it would be right here. And it went up 1, and it also went down 1. So this is also 1. Okay, and then period. Period is the sine graph. It doesn't just stop at 2 pi. It's going to keep going, and it's just going to repeat the picture. Okay, so it's just going to keep making this S-looking graph. But if I'm going to start at a certain point, when do I stop so then it doesn't repeat again? Okay, this one goes up, comes down, and goes back up. But then it would just stop right there, because if I continue, it's gonna repeat what happened at the beginning again. Okay, so if I start from 0, that means it should end at 2 pi. Okay, so the period would be 2 pi before the cycle starts again. Okay, so look at cosine x. Cosine x is a V shape, right? So if I were going to continue drawing this graph, it would come down, go back up, make another V, or the other way around, make another V like that. Okay, but looking at this graph right here, the V shape starts from 0 and actually ends at 2 pi. Okay, so that means this interval right here makes 1 cycle. That's 2 pi. Okay, let me tell you that, okay, real quick, this is by graph. I think by graph is the easiest to identify your range, amplitude, and period. But there is another way, which is according to the function. So this is the graph way. And this is kind of like the formula, a transformation of functions. So let me write out the whole entire formula, which is y equal, let me write up higher, y equal a, you can use sine or cosine, and then bx minus c close plus d. Okay, this should look very familiar to you, because every one of those a, b, c, and d means something. Okay, so the number in front, which is the a, so a in absolute value is the amplitude. Okay, so if you have a number multiplying by sine, that's the amplitude. If you go back and look at this, is there a number that multiplies to sine x? Yes, the invisible number right there would be 1, because invisible, right? So that's why my amplitude right here is 1. Let me use yellow. So this number is invisible, which is 1. Okay, and then we can look at next b. B actually means something. Okay, so B is useful to find your period. Period equals to 2 pi over B. Okay, so this number right here, it's good to use. If you have 2 pi over that number, that would be your period. So look at your sine graph. It's sine x, right? There's no number because it's invisible, 1. So right there, we'll just keep as 2 pi. Okay, 2 pi over here also, because 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi. Okay, and the last two letters are just, the C and D is just how much do you shift to the right, how many shift to the left, and D is up and down. Okay, left and right, D is up and down. Okay, so those are the two ways. I don't really like looking at it as the function way, like the formula way, because it's kind of like memorizing. But some questions, maybe you want to use it just to make it easier. Let me show you another question, a few more questions so you guys have a better idea of how it looks like. So it would ask you to sketch the graph of 3 cosine x on the interval of negative 4 pi comma 4 pi. Okay, so you can feel free to use your decimals. Oops. Oh, can I come back? Oh, there we go. Okay, decimals. So if you guys remember earlier, you can go to function, you go to cosine x. That's how a cosine x graph look like. Okay, I'm gonna go to this wrench and change my x-axis to negative 4 pi and make this one 4 pi. Okay, and then go away from it first. This is the original. Oops, I just went away from it. Dang it. Let me go back again. Negative 4 pi and 4 pi. You sure? Oh, I can do step. So step by pi over 2. So the reason why I do this, it just make it easier for you to see from, if I zoom out or zoom in, the pi's will stay. Okay, so they're asking us to find 3 cosine x. Okay, so the red is the original cosine x graph. Blue is if I put a 3 in front of it. Okay, so you can kind of see that it went from this number, 0, 1, to 0, 3. Okay, so let's hide the cosine x graph first. Remember, cosine graph is a V shape. So if I have to look for its range, what's the lowest and highest? You just click on the lowest point and the highest point. So the y numbers are negative 3 to 3. Okay, so range would be negative 3 to 3, amplitude, and period. Okay, amplitude is how far, if it's we're looking at the middle line, like the middle line is the, let me see, y equal to 0, right? This is the line in the middle. So how far did it go up? How far did it go down? It went 3 up and 3 down, right? And that means your amplitude would be 3, because that's how much we went up, how much we went down. Okay, how about how much does it take for us to form this V shape? So it starts from here and ended right there. That's how much we use to form a V shape. So that's just 2 pi. Okay, from 0 to 2 pi. So let's go to write down our answer. Period, again, is 2 pi. Amplitude is 3. Okay? So this is our a from our function. That's why this is a 3. And then period, because inside this parentheses, there's invisible 1. So when I come down to period, 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi. That's why this is our answer. Okay, so I used the graph way and I also used the formula way to confirm my answer. Let's look at a more complicated example. Let's look at 2 plus 0.3 cosine x. Okay, and if I have to, let's actually write down range, amplitude, and period. Okay, let's use the formula way to find out our answer first. Okay, what's the number that's multiplying to the cosine x graph? Is 0.3, right? So 0.3 can help us find our amplitude, which is right here. We just literally write it there. Okay, because that's our A. And then period. Period is whatever is in the parentheses of cosine that looks like it's invisible 1. So again, if that's invisible 1, I take my 2 pi over 1. That's just 2 pi. That means for a V shape, it just takes 2 pi to make a V shape. But the only thing we don't know is range. So let's go to our graph and type this in. Oops, 2 goes in the front. Okay, so this is how your graph looks like. This is a V shape, but if you can see, it starts from here and it ends from here, and then it repeats again. Oops, let me click on it again. Yeah, so our period, yes, it is 2 pi because that's our V shape. But what is our range? What's the lowest and highest point? Right now, we are clicking at our highest points, and our lowest point, wait, hold on. Yeah, right there. So our highest is 2.3, our lowest would be 1.7 because our graph shifted up already. Okay, so we're looking at 1.7, comma, 2.3. That's our range. And amplitude, if you find the middle of that point, we went up 0.3 and we went down 0.3. Okay. I'm gonna show a little bit more example. If you think you're ready, you can go ahead and work on your homework. Let me do this one. And this one. And one more. Okay, so I'm going to do 3 examples. Maybe you can work on it on your own and then check answers with me. Okay, so 3 plus cosine x. Range, amplitude, and period. Okay, so I like to do range last if I'm not using my graph. So for amplitude, is there any number multiplying to cosine x? No, so that means it's only 1. Period, any number multiplying to x? No, so that means this is still 2 pi. Okay, so if you're going to draw your graph, we are going to start from 0 to 2 pi, and you have this number in front, which is plus 3. That means if our original graph looked like this at first. Our new graph actually went up 1, 2, 3. It went up 3. Actually, sorry, hold up. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, so we went up 1, 2, and 3. So instead of being here, we jumped 1, 2, 3. It's here. And this point, we went 1, 2, and 3. It went up here. And last one, 1, 2, 3. It went up here. Okay, so in this case, our lowest point would be at 2. Highest point would be at 4. Okay, let's check our answer. I think it was this one, 3 plus. Show our graph. So lowest, highest, yes, is 2 and 4. And the V shape starts from here and ends right here. That's our V shape. And it's from 0 to 2 pi. Okay. And amplitude. Amplitude, the middle is actually y equal to 3. That's the middle of the V shape. So it went up from here. Oops. You guys look at it, this is at 3, right? So the other graph is at 4. That means it went up 1. Okay. Cosine 2x, range, amplitude, and period. Amplitude, this time there's no number multiplying to it, so it's a 1. Period, oh, we do have a number inside. So that means if I have 2 pi over, I'm going to put the 2 right under. So that means our period is going to just be pi. Okay, range, because we are not shifting up, shifting down, or multiplying any number to it, our range will just be from -1 to 1. Okay, confirm our answer. This was cosine 2x. Okay, look at your V shape. It starts from here and ended right there, which is at pi. So that's our period. And then it went up to 1 and it went down to -1. Okay, so that's why our range is from -1 to 1. Amplitude is 1. Okay, so let's look at our last one from our graph. 7 sine 2 pi x. Whoa. So this is how it looks like. And okay. I wish I can, well, okay, we're looking for sine, right? Ooh, this hurts my eyes. I am going to start from here. Let me see, that's 0. Okay, it went up to here, and then it came down to here, and then it ended up right there. Okay, so I'm gonna block this using -1 and 1. Oops, not -1 and 1, 0 and 1. Versus 0 and 1. So if you can tell, this is, I just took out a part of the graph, and it's like our normal S shape. So we went up, come down, and then go back up. So this is our original, but it actually shrunk from 0 to 1. Okay, and I'll explain why, but this is your answer for period, okay? Your period is 1, and I'll explain why it's 1 in a little bit. Let's look at our range. Range goes from the lowest to the highest, which is from -7 to 7. And our middle is at 0, so this is a middle line, the 0 is the middle line, and then we went up 7 and we went down 7. Okay, so our final answer for This part is range. Lowest is -7, highest is 7. Amplitude is 7, and it's because of this number, right? Period. Remember earlier I said the answer is 1. Like it finishes the cycle at 1 because look at what's inside the parentheses. 2 pi, right? So if I had 2 pi and I'm going to bring down this 2 pi, they actually get canceled out, which is just 1. So these are your answers. Okay, so I'm done showing my examples. I'm going to show you 3 of your homework questions. For Monday, your homework is from 2 to 12 even. Number 4, and we'll do number 6, and I'll do number 12. Okay, number 4, your function given is sine -5x, and they're going to ask you for range, amplitude, and period. Wrap. So, for which one's the easiest ones to do? I think amplitude, because I just look at the front of this. I'm like, hey, there's no number in front of it. That means amplitude is just 1. And because we're not multiplying any number to it and not adding any numbers to it, so that means our range will just start from -1 to 1. And period, we look at this number. Okay, so it's a 2 pi over that number. Actually, we're not going to count the negative because it's a cycle. We don't count that negative. So I'm only going to circle the 5. Okay, so 2 pi over 5 is your answer, because we can simplify that. Okay, number 6. Number 6, they gave you guys, let me show you the homework question. So right here, they gave you guys the graph, the original sine graph, and they asked you if suppose the figure above is part of the graph of the function for sine 5x. What is the value of b? So that means how much should it go up and how much should it go down? So what would be the number to use? It would be 4, right? So that's your answer. So again, 4, I think it was 4 sine 5x. Okay, so value of b. And this is a different b than our formula one. This b is how much it went up, okay, and how much it went down. So it went up 4, it also went down 4. Okay, so b equals to 4. Number 12. Number 12, find the smallest positive number c such that the figure above it's part of the graph of the function cosine x plus c. And they tell you that pi over 2 is not is not the correct answer. Okay, so if you guys look at this graph, the given graph, this is a sine graph, right? So I go from here to here. This is a sine graph. And if I shift it a little bit, it's going to look like a cosine graph. But how much do I shift so then it will look like, it would be that I put something into C, it will look exactly like this. Okay, let's look at our decimals. I'm going to start off by putting a sine graph in here. So, sine x. And then I'm going to put cosine x. And remember, I got to add something so then it will look like the red graph. So right now, let's look at our blue graph. How much do I have to move to the left, because we're adding, how much do I have to move to the left so then it will be right here? Okay, so imagine your blue graph moving to the left and it will go on top of the red graph. Okay, so originally is at 0. If I have to get here, I have to go 3 pi over 2, which is negative, right? So in here, I'm going to put plus because moving to the left, you got to do the opposite. So 3 pi over 2, see, it overlaps the red graph. Okay, so that means I have to move 3 pi over 2, which is c equals to that. Okay, and that's it for my lesson. It was a very long lesson, but then it will cover most of it. I will go over more for tomorrow when we have our Zoom meeting. So our Zoom meeting is on Tuesday from 12 to 1. If you have any questions ahead and you want to work on your homework with me or anything, you are welcome to join in starting at 11:30. I will be there. And if you want extra help from there, you are welcome to schedule any appointment with me, and then we can just do another Zoom meeting one-on-one to help you on these homework. Okay? Okay, have a good day. Bye.